I am very late to reviewing this book because I thought that I would not like it, and a year later, here I am. I'm going to pretty much rave about it, so be prepared. I recently read Sweet Bean Paste. It's a book I got for my birthday, and it's by Durian Sukegawa. I really don't know if that's his real name or not, but that's the author, and it does say his name is Durian, so we'll go by Durian. I initially really wanted to read this book because it ticks the aesthetic. I mean, it's gorgeous. I wanted to read this book mainly because I was really into like reading Japanese literature by authors that are not Murakami, and this was like 2 years ago. But at the same time that this was getting popular, another book was getting really popular, or series at the time, was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And people said like they're both really cozy. They were comparing them quite a lot. So my idiot brain was just like, oh, they must be really similar. And because I didn't enjoy Before the Coffee Gets Cold, I'm probably not gonna enjoy this either. So I didn't pick it up. Until recently, someone who I really love her reviews on Instagram, she talked about this book and she talked about how she didn't like Before the Coffee Gets Cold. So I was like, maybe I should give it another chance. And because it's autumn, you want to read those wholesome, cute stories. And the type here is also not too big, so it's like a quick read. It's about 200 pages, like a little over 200. So I'm like, I don't have too much to lose. I want to pick it up. And I did pick up the physical copy, which is also rare if I'm not sure if I like a book. But with this one, I also realized they had a thing by Cecilia Ahern, and she was like possibly my favorite author between the ages of 14 and 16. Okay, like 12 to 16. So all the more reason to own it. You okay? My puppy's acting a bit suspicious. I started reading this about 2 weeks ago, and the first, I would say 20 to 30% of the story is so freaking wholesome. Like, especially one thing that I really love and is really well done in Japanese literature, and something that I wish I could do so well, is depict intergenerational friendships really well. When I think about a lot of like books and contemporary fiction that I read, it's not like you don't find many well done friendships between people who have a huge age gap, but I feel like for some reason Japanese people do it so well, and they always give these older people such an interesting story, such an interesting like it's like a fully built character instead of just being like this old character in a book, which I do feel like is the case in some of the books. Another aspect I really loved about the book was the tiny cast of characters, because you really get that time to immerse yourself in that stories and you get invested in them because there's not a lot going on. It's just very deep into those few characters. I would say there's two main characters and like a few side characters that are also really cool. So the first guy you meet, who is this on the cover, his name is Sentaro, and he works in a shop called Doroharu, and he sells dorayaki. And in his dorayaki he puts sweet bean paste, and I want to say her name is Toku. So this lady here, she always crosses by his shop, and this street is one of like the streets in the corners that doesn't get a lot of footfall, and the shops there, like half of them are shut down but some of them are running. You get a lot of school children coming in, so it's like not the most, I guess, hip street. It's there and he's just getting by, and one day she stops and she kind of says like, are you looking to hire someone? Because he has a little post put up there, and he's like, age is no issue, because he was just looking for a companion. He works in the store alone all the time, and it's been a long time that he's been doing it, so he thought, if I find someone to keep me some company, that would be really nice. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, like, are you thinking about your grandchildren? She's like, no, actually I would like to apply. And things go from there, and it's very complicated because he has to think about a lot of aspects. He's not the owner, he's the store manager, so he has to think like, is it going to be okay to employ her, considering she is a bit older, and he thinks about the fact that the owner of the shop might not be happy with someone older working in the shop. The other aspect was that her hands, and it seemed like she was going through some kind of like face, like half her face was paralyzed and her hands and fingers were also slightly bent, so he wasn't really sure if like she was up to the job, but he didn't really think much about it. He asked her where she lived, and she gave him an address. It did ring a bell, but he didn't really think too deeply about it. Anyways, time goes by, and also he's very hesitant in the beginning. She brings him her sweet bean paste to try, and the moment he tries it, he's like, no, I have to have her. Like, I understand that she's older and I didn't doubt her ability to help me out, but this is nothing compared to the level or the quality of sweet bean paste we've been providing here in the shop. And as soon as she joins, like, the whole deal is that she comes in every other day. She does it really early in the morning and leaves, so she doesn't really have a chance to interact with customers or anything like that. But in between that, he does get really ill, and she runs the shop in his absence, so he does see that she is capable, and people are not put off by her age or her hands or her the way she looks. But then one day the owner of the shop does come around, and she asks him why he's gone ahead and hired someone without really like consulting with her. And from there on, the story takes a much darker turn. But even though it's like getting darker, I feel like the way it was written, it didn't make you kind of turn away or feel like, oh, like this is getting too deep, I can't continue reading this. It was done really respectfully. So basically, the backstory to this older lady then opens up, and you get to learn that when she was like 14 years old, she suffered from Hansen's disease, which is basically leprosy, and they call them lepers there. And in Japan especially, if you do get diagnosed, you have to be separated from society. You get taken to one of these institutions and you're admitted there, and you have to give up all your belongings, your name is changed, and you're basically admitted there for the rest of your life. And it was only in 1996, I believe, that the Leprosy Act was abolished, which means that people who have had that disease could go back into society. And that was because I think it's been like close to 50 years or more, I mean at this point more, that there has been no active cases of leprosy, and it's actually quite manageable, and there is medicine, like medicine has evolved to the stage where we can handle it, so people no longer need to, we don't need to take those degree of, I guess, actions towards people who have that disease. And it was very, very isolating and very, very, I would say, almost inhumane to treat people like that. But also, it's a disease that is very visual, it's very visible, and people didn't understand that. The story does a really good job of showing that even sometimes if laws are abolished, the damage has been done. Like, people in Japanese society are so scared and so, like, you know, they have this idea in their head of what it is and how people were treated if they had the condition, that even now that they're allowed to be back in society, it's not as easy. And it's not easy that you've been away from your family and friends for 50 years. Like in her case, Toku, the woman who came to help him, she had lost her entire family in that time, so she had nowhere to go back to, and reintegrating into society is so difficult. So she talks about her time as a 14-year-old coming into this institution from this faraway village to the outskirts of Tokyo, and she didn't really have anything to associate with, because the thing about the small community of people, I guess, that is that the outside world wanted so little to do with them that they had to form their own currency. They had their own set of doctors, nurses, haircutters, so they basically managed within themselves. And Toku at the time joined the confectionery society within this, and that's where she learned to make sweets and spend more than 50 years making these amazing desserts. So that's her experience. And when she comes and works with Sentaro, he gets, like, every time she's there standing over the stove cooking these beans, watching her devotion to like rinsing these beans on time and doing like step-by-step process is just so intriguing to him, and he learned a lot from her. But as time goes by, like I said, his the owner of the store comes by and she's like, you can't have someone like that working in the store. If rumors go around, people will stop coming and we'll lose out. And he says, no, she's the reason why sales have picked up, she's really helped me. But things go on, and with time they do start losing customers, and Toko basically says, it's okay, I've done my job, I'm also getting really old, because she's like in her late 70s. And she says, I've taught you everything I need to, and I'm just gonna, you know, end it here. After Toku leaves, Sentaro finds no motivation to continue without her, because even his own pace is like nowhere to her level. But it's not only that, he felt really bad for being yet another person to have abandoned her when she has been abandoned most of her life because of a condition that she has recovered from 40 years ago. And even now she is living as like an active member of society while still feeling like she still has that disease because of the way people treat her. But a lot of stuff happens towards the end. We also get to learn more about Toku's story and her time in the institution. And there's another girl, a younger schoolgirl, who becomes kind of like a friend of hers. And it's just three of their lives getting entwined. And Sentaro himself has quite an interesting backstory, which I won't go too into. I'm not giving you like, I still want you guys to go ahead and read the book if you haven't. But the backstory that he has leads him to a period in his life where he doesn't see the point of really continuing. It's kind of like the man's search for meaning. Like, what is the point of working in the store? He's not passionate about confectionery, he's not passionate about anything, he's just kind of like killing time till whatever happens. And after meeting Toku and seeing like all the terrible things that have happened to her, and she still finds meaning in these little things, inspires him to question maybe like what he wants to do, and also start enjoying what is already a part of his life, which is making dorayaki. And they don't really give you like a closing, like there's no perfect ending. You don't really find out what Sentaro does with the rest of his life and what happens to, oh, you find out what happens to Toku and then the other schoolgirl. But it's just that short period of their time where the three happen to meet and they happen to exchange each other's stories, and then they leave each other's paths and they continue on their own. But having learned, like if he had never met this lady and then he had never formed a friendship with her and he had never learned about her life story, he would have never gone ahead and maybe researched or even known. Same for me, if I hadn't read this book, I would have never really, actually that's a lie, because when I watched Princess Mononoke, I remember having a read through like how Japanese society used to treat people with leprosy, because that's like also in the movie. But I didn't know about the current situation, and somehow when I read that, it felt like such a long time ago. But this is very recent, like it was abolished after I was born. It's great that we as society have moved on and we've progressed both medically and emotionally, but I think there's still a lot of work to be done around plenty of maybe stigmas or taboos that surround people with certain illnesses. Have we as society moved ahead enough? Are we keeping up with the times to make it easy for other people to integrate back, or are we still being really touchy and uneducated and basically sticking to our old worldviews and not taking the time to educate ourselves? Being able to take the time to educate yourself about anything is a good thing, and it's like something that's more accessible to us, more available. But at the same time, there's a lot of misinformation going around now with internet being, you know, more accessible. There's a lot of people also spreading a lot of misinformation, so you can go both ways. But taking your own time, even if you have certain reservations about something or someone, it's good to always look into the culture, look into the situation the person is going through, and I'm sure we can all find it in our heart to actually be like, the way I reacted might not have been the best, and I can teach myself a little better. But yeah, that was my takeaway from the book. Super cute, and it does make you really hungry. You don't get cherry blossom tea here or dorayaki, but I did feel like I was craving both of those while reading the book. If you've already read it, let me know what you think, and if you have any recommendations based on this, let me know. Bye!